Our last lesson for using equations to solve word problems is finding what's called consecutive numbers. Okay, what does consecutive mean? Well, consecutive means one followed by another. Okay, and consecutive numbers would be numbers that follow each other. So consecutive numbers would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. Those would be considered consecutive numbers. Consecutive even numbers would be 2, 4, 6, 8, so on. I have to go one after the other. Notice I didn't skip any. 2, I went from 2 to 4 to 6 to 8. I didn't go 2 to 6 to 10. It's consecutive. There's no in-betweens. And then odds would be 1, 3, 5, 7, and so on down the line. Those are consecutive odd numbers. So we're going to do 3 different problems where we do consecutive numbers, consecutive even numbers, and consecutive odd numbers. Okay, so that's how that works. So how do we do this? Well, this is what you do. I'm going to use n in place of the variable for numbers. And so notice it doesn't say, it just says 2 consecutive numbers. So let's talk about that. If n is the first number, so n is the first number, how would you describe the second number? Like, how would you get to the second number? So if, let's say, the first number were 8, how would I get to 9? If the first number were 12, how do I get to 13? Like, how do I get to the next number? All I have to do is add 1. So whatever the first number is, if I add 1 to it, I get the second number. Okay, and that's how this works. So if the number of, the sum, which again, sum is subtraction, or subtraction, wow, it's been a long day. Sum is addition, addition, I'm going to do that to both of these things. So basically it's the first number plus the second number, and adding together will give me 123. So the first number is n, the second number is n plus 1, and they total 123. So all I have to do is solve this, combining like terms, subtracting 1, we get 122 divided by 2, that's 61. And again, if 61 is the first number, then 62 is the second number. And I'm done. Again, just double check. Was I supposed to do that? Yes. First number, second number. All I have to do is put the 61 in here. I don't have to do that because the math is easy, but if I had to double check, that's what I would do. All right, so we're going to do 10. Now we're going to jump down to 12. What happens if we're doing even numbers? Well, that's kind of interesting. So we're going to make n the first number. Okay? How do we get to the second even number? How am I going to get to the second even number? Okay, so let's say, I'll write this over the side. Let's say 4 is my first number. How do I get to my second number? If I add 1, I'm going to get to 5. I need to get to 6. So what do I have to do? I have to add 1, then I have to add 1 again. So really, I'm adding 2. If I add 2, it will skip over every other one. So n, so let's say again, if n were 100, this would be 102. This were 8, this would be 10. This was 16, this would be 18. So it skips over the odd number. As long as I start off with an even number, I will end up on an even number. All right, so again, first plus second equals 54. Plug it in. N plus 2 equals 54. Combining like terms and subtracting 2. Is that 52? Okay, dividing it by 2, n is 26. So 26 is the first number. So how do we get to the next number? Next even number. I'm not going to put 27 because that's an odd number. I need to put 28. Also, remember, you can always put the 26 in right there. to get your next number if you forget. All right, and again, if I add 26 and 28, that will give me 54. Okay. All right, so now let's do an odd number. Okay, n is the first number. How do I get to my second odd number? Remember that my first number, and I should have put this, my first number is odd. Okay, how do I get to my second odd number? Okay, so let's say I started off on 11. How do I get to my next odd number? How do I get there? If I add 1, I'm on an even number. I need to get to the next odd number. So what do I need to do? What's weird is I'm adding 2. I'm still adding 2. It all has to do with what n is. If n's an odd number, adding 2 gives you an odd number. If n was an even number, like this one, if it started off being even here, this is going to be even because you're adding 2. You're skipping over the odd number. Okay, so these two setups are exactly the same, no matter if you're doing odd or even, because it has to do with placement in the numbering number line. If I start off with an odd and I add 2, I get to an odd. If I started off in an even, I added 2, I'm going to get to an even. That's how our numbers work. All right, so again, same setup, except I'm going to be 128 this time. So I do the same exact thing. N plus 2 equals 128. 2n plus 2 equals 128. Subtract 2. 2n's equal to 126. Divided by 2. N is 63. So 63 is one of my numbers, and 65 would be the next. And if I want to double check, I could add 63 plus 65, and it would give me 128. All right, so we're going to do on the back here, number 15. What do we do when we have 3 odd numbers? What are we going to do? All right, so here's the thought process. We got to get 3 numbers now. 3 numbers. So we got, this is the first odd number. We got to get to the second odd number. And then how are we going to get to the third odd number? Well, we already know what happens if we add 2. We'll get to the second odd number. What do we have to do in order to get to the next odd number? N plus 3? No. We need to skip over n plus 3 and get to n plus 4. It's sort of like doing n plus 2 plus 2. We keep on going. So the next one will be n plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. And so on and so on and so on down the line. So this is going to be n plus 4. We're skipping over any of these. And again, if this were even number, if this was an even, adding 2 would give you an even. If you added 2 more to this one, not from the original, but to this one, this would give you the next even number. So odds and evens work exactly the same. So we just have to make sure we're getting this part correct. This part doesn't change whether it's even or odd. Just makes a difference if you're not doing odd or evens. You're doing consecutive. All right, so now we have the first plus the second plus the third equaling 57. So the only hard part about this is we have a little bit more combining like terms that we're going to have to do, a little bit more. So we're adding all these up and setting up to 57. Okay, so we got 1, 2, 3 n's plus 6 equals 57. Minus 6, roll sides, 3n is equal to 51. N is equal to 17. So we got 17, then 2 more is 19, and then 17, if I wanted to, 17 plus 4 is 21. And again, if I were to add 17 plus 19 plus 21 added together, I will get 57. And that's how you do that. So good luck on the classwork. I think you'll do fine.